Well, again, we have to tell you that we'll have some conversation with some great international relations analysts, some political scientists about the Malian situation. Already, we do know that the president has decided to resign and leave office, but it's also because it was at the behest, very forcefully by the military, putting the gun literally just behind his neck to make sure that he took that decision. This widely has been condemned by the UN, the AU, ECOWAS, and other international bodies. But we also would treat as urgent the matter of the vice president in his latest town hall meeting, telling us about the massive infrastructural project undertaken by the MPP-led administration with Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo at the helm of affairs, and how that also compares with John Dramani Mahama's NDC over whether a 4-year or an 8-year period. We'll do all that as we analyze the issues critically right here. But in the meantime, because it's a Wednesday, always brought to you by EcoBank, we have AM Biz. And on AM Business this morning, ever thought of the possibility of bringing in goods from neighboring Nigeria, Ethiopia, or South Africa without paying import duty? This and more are the packages the Continental Free Trade Agreement area present to you. Now, in this edition of AM Business, Charles Aite is taking us through the prospect and fears of the Free Trade Agreement.
Africa is open for business. The very words of President Akufo-Addo as he handed over the office complex of the Africa Continental Free Trade Secretariat to the AU Commission.
The coming into being of the African Continental Free Trade Area is one of the most important decisions taken by the AU. When you consider the fact that trade between African countries remains low, currently standing at some 16% of our combined GDP, compared to other parts of the world, like the European Union's 75%, it is obvious that these very low levels of intra-regional trade constitute one of the defining characteristics of our continuing poverty. They hinder our prospects of bringing prosperity to our peoples. A large part of the growth and prosperity that we seek on the continent will come from us trading more amongst ourselves.
This iconic moment is a product of the vote of confidence in Ghana to host the secretariat of what is expected to be the world's largest single market zone. With $3 trillion in annual GDP, this never came at a better time.
Indeed, as part of the hosting agreement, Ghana was requested by the Assembly to work with the AU Commission to ensure an expeditious and efficient process of establishing a permanent secretariat for the AfCFTA in Accra. Ghana has fully discharged all her obligations and commitments agreed with the AU Commission. And we are today handing over a fully furnished and befitting office space in a secured and easily accessible location within the business center of Accra.
He is the man to steer the affairs of the Continental Free Trade Agreement area. Wamkele Mene has a task ahead of him to forge intra-African trade from the woeful 13% to a promising 33% or more.
We will mobilize multilateral development finance institutions in Africa in order to ensure that we mobilize resources for targeted soft infrastructure for the facilitation of our trade, whether it is in the form of one border posts, facilitation of ease of transit of goods, all of those infrastructure-related activities, we will support and complement the efforts at sub-regional and at national level. It's very important that we do that. In terms of the ratifications, there are 26 countries that have not yet ratified. As you are aware, ratification is a national process. It is determined by a country's national laws or a constitution. And so we have to, whilst we are conscious of the importance of rapidly moving towards ratification. At the same time, we have to balance that with the need to respect national processes.
Former UK Cabinet Minister Paul Yeboahten says the success of the Continental Free Trade Agreement area will be based on reforms and strategies that will make the continent attractive to investors.
Yes, the pandemic is a crisis. The world is in recession. Africa will not be and is not immune from either the pandemic or the global recession. But a crisis is both a challenge and an opportunity. And the pandemic in its way creates a unique opportunity, not least for small and medium-sized enterprises. So we have to make sure that there is startup capital for them, that there's a transparent and reliable regulatory environment that facilitates entrepreneurship and encourages investors.
Even as the Continental Free Trade Agreement opens up for the free movement of goods and services, the emergence of a burgeoning entrepreneurial space questions Africa's preparedness to support SMEs to expand to meet global competition. Already, they are concerned over the high cost of lending. Ebenezer Onyegu is the Managing Director and CEO at Zenith Bank PLC.
The issue of access to credits is being addressed. If the moment we have the African Continental Free Trade Zone, I expect them to draw up a framework that should guide various countries on the institutional support and framework required to give flesh and life to their initiatives. And they also need institutional support and framework from the different countries. We need to have some reforms that will support the initiative they will come up with. Then, of course, they need the support of the private sector and the public sector altogether. So we need to see it as a completely African project. We need to see it as a project that will help us rejuvenate the African enterprise, the way we conduct ourselves, and let's achieve economies of scale.
But there remains a challenge. Programs Manager of the Third World Network Africa, Sylvester Baguro, fears the Africa Single Market Initiative may not have a smooth takeoff as expected. He worries over the rules of origin not well streamlined.
Even look at what they call the protocols on goods. That means you are trading goods across Africa. We have what we call the rules of origin. That is the passport of the product. What product can actually qualify as a Ghanaian or African product is one. Number two, how the selection is done in terms of the goods. And so I want to explain this so that it will be clear. First of all, in terms of the selection of the products, that is where the president talked about the agriculture and all that. We have 90%, 70%, and 3%. And let me explain. The 90% means that all products that are coming from the rest of Africa who are party to the agreement will enter duty-free, quota-free. It means that we are not going to charge duties on them when they come to the port. They just come in like that. They'll be treated as Ghanaian products. So that must be clear. Secondly, we also have an agreement, we have our 7% that they are in the wisdom of the technical people that there's a need to protect these sectors. And so they are going to open up, but then they'll take much more time. And that is one of the dimensions. And thirdly, there's what they call the 3%. For that one, they are not going to be excluded. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that this is a very good, we have gotten the secretary, it is very good, but how it will benefit the many Ghanaians and Africans across the country will depend on how the rules are defined and also depend on how the selection is done.
Being at the forefront of a battle against the influx of foreigners in Ghana's retail space, the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, Dr. JosephObeng, has called for trading communities under the AfCFTA program to be well-oriented on the pact so as to prevent mistakes of the past. I start with him to assess the opportunities and challenges ahead.
We should be mindful that with the coming of the Continental Free Trade Area, ECOWAS is a subset of the Continental Free Trade, so it's virtually null and void. But we should be able to manage any contradiction that these sub-regional blocks, whatever rules and engagement they have, does not come to contradict the Continental Free Trade Area. But for us, once we have the Continental Free Trade Area, it should be the overall thing, and then this thing should be the things of the past. If we are thinking about Africa, we think about Africa. And so these mistakes in the past should be a thing of the past.
The total trade from Africa to the rest of the world averaged $760 billion in current prices in the period of 2015 and 2017, compared with $481 billion from Oceania, $4,109 billion from Europe, and over $5,000 billion from America, with $6,000 billion from Asia.
The most developed regions of the world are, incidentally, the regions also with the highest level of market integration. Regrettably, Africa still remains the least integrated region in the world. Less than 15% of Africa's total trade occurs within the region. The paradox of Africa being the richest continent and yet the poorest could be partly attributed to this unfortunate situation. Distinguished invited guests, the successful implementation of the AfCFTA will bring many benefits to our continent. First, it will increase the level of intra-African trade with the harmonization and coordination of trade within the continent. It is estimated that intra-African trade would increase by as much as $35 billion or by 52% per annum.
The share of export from Africa to the rest of the world ranged from 80% to 90% between 2000 and 2018. This is big for Africa, unprecedented in the continent's trade history. I'm Charles Aite for Joy Business.